Good afternoon and welcome to From Where We Are. I'm Taylor Mills coming to you live from Studio B in USC's Annenberg Media Center.
And I'm Stefan Delaguardia. From Where We Are brings you stories of news and culture through the lens of USC and Southern California. It's Monday, April 4th, 2022.
On today's show, Japanese American students during World War II get honorary degrees from USC.
It's the end of a long 80-year journey for these students and now their families.
Elon Musk buys 9% of Twitter for about $3 billion with a B.
Wow, and a conversation with the Muslim journalist about Ramadan.
All that and more after these news headlines.
From Annenberg Media, I'm Patrick Lauren. The United Nations published its most recent climate change report today. It states that while the world is experiencing levels of global warming that will have irreversible effects, we already have the solutions to slow the transition, and the only thing preventing effective solutions is political bureaucracy and a heavy investment in fossil fuels. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said today,
"We are on a fast track to climate disaster."
The city of Shanghai will remain under lockdown as it processes COVID-19 tests for all of its 26 million residents. The lockdown began last week. Almost 38,000 healthcare workers from all over China have been sent to Shanghai. This is China's largest public health response since the initial COVID-19 outbreak in Wuhan. Republican Senators Lisa Murkowski and Mitt Romney have announced that they will vote to confirm U.S. Supreme Court nominee Ketanji Brown Jackson. The support of now 3 Republican senators all but ensures that the Senate will vote to confirm the first black woman to serve on the nation's highest court. One man has been arrested after Sunday's mass shooting in Sacramento. At least 6 people were killed and 12 others were wounded. Police are looking for multiple suspects for the shooting that occurred at around 2 a.m. near nightclubs in the city's downtown. Today, USC raised its undergraduate tuition by 5% for the upcoming school year. This is the university's highest tuition increase since the beginning of the pandemic. So far, the university has not given an official response in regards to the increase. The University of North Carolina will face Kansas tonight in the men's college basketball championship in New Orleans. Yesterday in the women's NCAA championship, South Carolina beat the University of Connecticut. Those are some of the top stories in the news.
The year was 1941. Japan had just bombed Pearl Harbor, and President Franklin Roosevelt issued an executive order requiring the internment of approximately 120,000 Japanese Americans living on the West Coast.
When the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, our West Coast became a potential combat zone. Living in that zone were more than 100,000 persons of Japanese ancestry, 2/3 of them American citizens, 1/3 aliens. We knew that some among them were potentially dangerous, but no one knew what would happen among this concentrated population.
Among them were 120 Japanese American students studying at USC. They were denied their education and forced to leave for the camps. 81 years later, this past Friday, USC gave late recognition to those students and awarded them honorary degrees. Jocelyn Stone reports.
On Friday, April 1st, USC President Carol Folt awarded 33 Japanese American students honorary degrees. Their educations were once taken away due to American hostility towards Japan in World War II. USC professor and managing director of the Spatial Sciences Institute, Susan Kame, shares the horrible treatment Japanese American students once faced.
What was particularly unfortunate, tragic, and mean-spirited was that for those students that were enrolled here at USC, they could have had the opportunity, once they got transferred to detention facilities or voluntarily relocated to other parts of the country outside of these military exclusion zones, to continue their education.
Former president of USC's Asian Pacific Alumni Association, Jonathan Kaji, hopes that Friday's recognition will bring awareness to the injustice many Japanese Americans faced during the war.
So my hope is that this will lead to a movement that will bring about a full inclusion of these stories so that for the next generation, they'll have a more full and complete understanding of the role and the continuing impacts of these past instances that still reach out and affect us today.
Kaji applauds USC's action, but says that there are still more steps that need to be taken.
The big takeaway for me is that educating the general public, starting with the public schools, is a great starting point, because the history of the United States, or the history of Asian Americans on the West Coast specifically, still remains unknown and unrepresented in public textbooks.
USC professor Susan Kame shares the optimism. She hopes that people will become more aware of Japanese American history and more accepting and inclusive of all cultures.
Creating awareness, creating a sense of overcoming the otherness, so that if you have more connection with individuals who are very different from ourselves, we can understand more about their life experiences and maybe find that there's commonality that we didn't think existed before.
In 2012, USC did award degrees to Japanese students it had forced to leave, but only to those still alive. Normally, that's USC's policy for honorary degrees, but in this case, President Folt made an exception, and the university has now recognized all the wronged Japanese students, both living and deceased. The former president of USC's Asian Alumni Association, Jonathan Kaji, is relieved that the students are finally recognized by the institution.
It's the end of a long 80-year journey for these students and now their families.
For Annenberg Media, I'm Jocelyn Stone.
On March 15th, a custodian at USC was arrested on suspicion of felony theft. She was suspended from her job and is due to go to court in July. But there could be more to this story than meets the eye. Wilco Martinez-Cachero has more.
Francisca Trigueros has been a custodian at USC for more than 2 decades, but now her livelihood is at risk after being arrested over spring break. On March 10, Trigueros found a lost backpack in the Sealy G. Mudd building. Faculty members say she went to return it to the lost and found, just as she had done in the past with other valuables. But after not finding any of the lost and found staff, Trigueros locked the backpack in the supplies closet. Faculty in the psychology department where the backpack was found say the bag had a quote-unquote substantial amount of money in it. It was reported missing by a student, and 5 days later, Trigueros was arrested by the LAPD. After that, she was suspended without pay, and Trigueros now faces a court date on July 12. We reached out to her, but her lawyer has advised her to not make any public comments. At USC, more than 50 faculty and staff members from the psychology department have gathered in defense of Trigueros. Tuala Ponton is an administrative assistant in psychology and is one of the people Trigueros might have brought the found bag to.
I've had a few times where she's turned in things that she's found. It just so happens this particular time that this bag was misplaced, I was out on vacation. And being so, the office, there was no one here to receive it per se.
Some faculty and staff take issue with how Trigueros' arrest happened. Melissa Reyes, a project assistant in the department, explains.
They sat her down after they had handcuffed her. So nobody really approached her. It went automatically from, oh, we saw security footage of you taking the backpack, but did they see security footage of her trying to return the backpack, I'm sorry? Nobody said anything.
Psychology lecturer Leslie Burnson says that Trigueros might not have done anything wrong.
We don't have that written down anywhere as protocol, but given that the alternative was to leave it in the classroom, which remains unlocked, I can't fault her judgment.
On Sunday, USC Psychology Department called on the university to open a formal investigation into Trigueros' arrest. They also want USC to help her get her job back with Aramark, the independent contractor that provides custodians to the school. Associate psychology professor Darby Saxby is worried about Trigueros' future over what might be a misunderstanding.
The outcome of this has certainly been tremendous for Francisca in the sense that not only was she suspended without pay for several weeks, but it now looks very likely that she'll be fired and out of a job that she's held for 24 years as a 61-year-old woman without significant savings.
Trigueros' future at USC remains uncertain. After her arrest, she was released from the 77th Street Regional Jail. Trigueros is scheduled to go to court on July 12. Her case is being handled by the LA Police Department rather than the university's Department of Public Safety. For Annenberg Media, I'm Wilco Martinez Cachero.
Krista Lucas reported on this story. She'll have more on this tonight on Annenberg TV News.
I'm Taylor Mills.
And I'm Stefan DeLaGuardia. It's 10 minutes past the hour. We're glad you're with us for From Where We Are. Coming up, Taylor, what's coming up?
We'll hear about Elon Musk, free speech, and Ramadan.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Thanks. Elon Musk surprised people today, spending nearly $3 billion with a B dollars to buy almost 10% of Twitter. Musk is now the single largest shareholder. Ethan Huang asks, will this have consequences for free speech?
Late last month, Tesla Motors CEO Elon Musk posed a question to his 80 million Twitter followers. His tweet read, "Free speech is essential to a functioning democracy. Do you believe Twitter rigorously adheres to this principle? The consequences of this poll will be important. Please vote carefully." Underneath the tweet was a poll with the options yes or no. Millions of votes and thousands of retweets later, and the results were in. 70% of voters said no. In response to the poll's results, Musk tweeted, "Given that Twitter serves as the de facto public town square, failing to adhere to free speech principles fundamentally undermines democracy. What should be done? Is a new platform needed?" Just last month, Musk said that he was giving serious thought to creating a new social media platform. That's hard to do, even for Elon Musk. Today, Musk purchased over 9% of Twitter's shares. This makes him the company's largest stockholder. Even the company's founder and former CEO, Jack Dorsey, only owns just over 2% of its shares. Musk's purchase today could encourage other activist investors to buy shares, and Musk could also increase his holdings. His filing did not state the purpose of his huge purchase today, or any plans he might have for the company. But Musk has a history of criticizing Twitter's policies, especially in regards to free speech. He claims to be a free speech activist, but giving the world's wealthiest individual, with a reported net worth north of $270 billion, influence over one of the most prominent information-sharing platforms, is worrying to some. When the stock market closed today, news about Musk's purchase sent Twitter's shares soaring over 27%. Though following the large-scale purchase, the sometimes cryptic maverick Elon Musk simply tweeted today, "Oh hi, LOL." For Annenberg Media, I'm Ethan Huang.
I mean, to be fair, what do you tweet after you spend $9 billion on a platform?
I don't even know.
Well, in other news, we are now on the third day of Ramadan, and earlier we spoke to a Muslim journalist, Meha Aman, about the holiday. She is a senior producer for the Chicago NPR affiliate WBEZ, with previous experience at Al Jazeera. And I saw your tweet that you couldn't have coffee this Monday morning. So how are we doing? How are we feeling now?
I'm okay. It's been a struggle. You know, a lot of me and a lot of my Muslim friends, we going into Ramadan, we all know especially the journalists, we're all addicted to coffee. So we go in knowing that we're going to get caffeine headaches if we don't start weaning ourselves off earlier. And so there's a week or two in advance where we're all like, okay, let's cut the 4 cups a day to 1 cup and see what happens. So I avoided the caffeine headaches. I'm good, but I am tired. So I'm a little tired. So I missed the jolt.
What does the media get wrong about Ramadan?
I think often it's just hey, you guys aren't eating, right? And how does that work? And then I think even the definition of fasting kind of varies from faith to faith. You know, some faiths do it for a full 24 hours, no water, no food. Others, abstain from maybe specific foods. just getting I think the basic definition for us right, which is like it's pre-dawn. It's like I think it's like a dawn to sunset. So and it's no water, no food. A lot of people ask me like, did you drink water, right? Like, no, it's nothing until then. But then once it's evening, you can eat whatever you want. But it's more than that. It's more than the food. It's more than like, I will say like the fasting part, the not eating part is like less than half of what all of Ramadan's about. Like a lot of it's like about building community, building good habits, one thing that, like a lot of us aren't supposed to be doing in Ramadan is like swearing, and we're supposed to like put goodness out in the world as opposed to like, I'm somebody who curses like a sailor. I'm a journalist from Chicago. I have no choice. But like, during Ramadan, it's like, I really got to sort of hold back. But more than that, like doing more community work, charity, working on your own faith, reading more Quran, like all of that is part of that. Like, and when I say building community, a lot of it is, there's like a special prayer that we only do in Ramadan called Tarawih. And like, it's after you break your fast. So after you've eaten, like everybody goes to the mosque and they pray this prayer. And, like that's a largely like group activity. Like you're doing that with your neighbors and your friends and your family. And that's part, like during the year, you can, pray in groups, but it's just done a lot less often, I think, in our day to day. And, Ramadan is a time to reset a lot of that.
How, as people in media, journalists ourselves, how can we best use our platform to inform people or kind of just tell the story of what Ramadan looks like? Getting that like inside look into people's day to day, letting people tell their own stories rather than like, hey, what is Ramadan? Like, rather kind of getting past the very basic, like, FAQ, and just letting people tell their own, like, what is your experience? What does this year look like for you? What are you looking forward to? Just having them tell their own stories, which I thought, I was really glad when our station did that. It wasn't something that I'd seen a lot of people do before. You talked about you have a couple of friends who were like in the Muslim journalism community. What is that community like? Like, what does it mean to be a part of that? And why is it so important that, you guys all have a connection? That community, like, I will say is kind of essential to, my, I think like healthy journalism experience here. In that, like, for me, I'm the only Muslim that works at my station. We're like 150 people and it's just me. And a lot of times that's the case, right? A lot of times there's a newsroom and, it is just like that one person. And I mean, that's not all the newsrooms in Chicago, for example. There are others that have like multiple, like Muslims, but for me, that's my case. So it's been sort of essential for me to be able to have this group to go to where I'm saying like, hey, what are your tips for staying on deadline when you're exhausted? Meha, thank you so much for joining us today. We really, really appreciate your perspective. All right, sure, no problem. That was Meha Ahmad, a senior producer at Chicago's NPR affiliate WBEZ. To hear more of the interview, check us out at annenbergmedia.com. And for our regular listeners, that was a longer show than usual. And we have a special guest host today, which is really awesome. Yes, Brian, I hope you get better.
Yeah, let's run through the credits, shall we? Val Diaz and Guillermo Guerrero produce today's show. Fernando Cienfuegos runs the soundboard. And we had help from Jason Lopez, Kylie Warden, Zach Gibbs, and Sophie Peleas. Derek Renfro composed our theme music.
We stream live on KXSC. Follow us at kxsc.org/listen. And we're on YouTube at Annenberg Radio News. Subscribe to From Where We Are on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
And look for us on Twitter, which Musk now owns. Facebook and Instagram at Annenberg Media.
I'm Stefan Delaguardia.
And I'm Taylor Mills. From all of us at Annenberg Radio, wherever you are, we hope you'll join us again for
From Where We Are.
And I know exactly where I'm going, and that is to my phone on the Twitter feed, where I can exist as a journalist in peace, at least for now.
I'm going to the bank because now I need a little more money to pay this tuition.
Yeah. Tough. We'll catch y'all next week. Thank you so much.
Thank you.